Hey, welcome to I Know a Guy Bicycle Shop Talk Tuesday. Sorry, I'm a little late, but hey, it's Tuesday, and there's always a lot to do on Tuesdays in a shop, as you will learn to see or learn to know real quickly here. So, thank you for joining me. This is Shop Talk Tuesday live, and this is my shop. If you haven't seen one of these before, I'm a garage shop and been in the industry over 35 years. And within that history of 35 years, working from Parker Bikes from my parents' shop in the 90s to working at Lee's Cyclery, which you'll see a couple decals there from the 2000s and teens, to now I have my own, basically a bike shop in the garage. Everything pretty much as a regular bike shop except for the brick and mortar location. And that does cut down a lot of the overhead. It makes me very agile to be able to do a lot of different things. But in any case, thank you for joining me. And we're going to go through some serious topics that we've been kind of looming around. And this is the beginning of the month, and we're halfway through the year. So what is the state of the 2025? We got a kind of a bullet points, laundry list of how the big boys are handling all of this, like Trek Specialized, Pon, all of them, Giant, and other brands, and going into the Tour de France month, which is basically the big summer kickoff race for most roadies anyway, and it's kind of the basically Super Bowl of cycling because it's the most popular in a sense. I'm sure there's probably some other races and mountain bike races and other versions of races that are very popular as well, but Tour de France is kind of one that a lot of people know about. But in any case, we're at the cuspus of that particular race kicking off, where a lot of bike industry is just kind of pushing and trying to make something of the season, because every season is different and has its benefits and also extreme challenges. And we have experienced a lot of extreme challenges in the last few years, and leading up to this year has been basically paralyzing whiplash for a lot of these companies. In any case, they're trying to navigate through all this as well as all the bike shops. But there is a silver lining, and actually, for me, in my perspective, it's the better win versus, okay, they're hanging in there. But in any case, we'll go over a few of those points. But thank you for joining in. I'm on Shop Talk Tuesday. So let's see. I'm going to go through a couple of the repairs. It's one of those, it's summer. I mean, I'm busy. A lot of shops are busy. It's in season. And if you're on the flip side, down under, it's close to winter time for you guys, and your shops are a little bit slower, and you're retooling and so forth, as what we do here. But and also some states in the United States, also in more warmer climates, it gets almost too hot, which is kind of a head spinner if you're not used to thinking in that perspective. That yeah, there sometimes some states, their off season is actually the summer because it's too dang hot to ride, like Texas and Florida and so forth. So those shops, even though they are still fairly busy doing other things and repairs, and new product is usually released at this time of year, but it's typically majority of the states in the northern hemisphere, it's bike season, and here we are. And this is where a lot of the industry has worked itself around to kind of to embrace, and they've been molding it and forming it for decades. So here we are. So let's without further ado go into some of the topic pieces. And thank you for joining me. If you're just joining me right now, thank you for joining the Shop Talk Tuesday, where I talk about industry bullet points and so forth, talk about what's going on in my shop, and gonna add a little extension to some of these of like, hey, if you're a newbie, just learning how to work on some bikes, starting off a building, or just working in a shop and just want to get a little some extra knowledge, that's great too. We'll feature that towards the end as like gold nuggets for bike shop experience, that kind of thing. Because a lot of people are intimidated by bikes because it's just gotten always more complicated, and it keeps on compounding. And basically, we want to try to help you navigate that. And there is a big, huge deficit right now in the cycling communities of adding bike mechanics, or people are getting the cycling working on their bikes and so forth. So there's a huge deficit there, which has always been kind of the case, but it's just getting worse. Where a lot of companies are kind of like red flagging, like, we need people, and well, at the end of the day, the industry is going to have to figure out a pipeline for those that want to get into the industry and work on bikes and work in shops and so forth, have a livable wage and a promotion scale to relate that, or to combat that. Basically, I hit the glass ceiling and I'm done. I experienced that in the early 2000s, and but today's landscape is definitely a lot different. There's a lot more opportunities for those who are into the cycling community. But we'll talk about that towards the tail end here. But going into it, starting off, well, we'll look at it as top down and bottom laughing. Anyway, not laughing, but we're just very thankful for what we're experiencing. And hopefully you're able to hear me pretty well and see me, all that. Any case, chime in and definitely join the conversation by putting in chats. This is a community, please share. We do have a fair amount of people that have been in the industry or still in the industry, or those who are just avid cyclists, to those who are just newbies and trying to figure out what is this thing as a cycling community and what that all entails. And this kind of pulls the curtain back behind those walls. When you walk to a bike shop, the service departments a lot of times are hidden, and the background chatter is never really heard by the general public because it's a forward-facing retail front. It's a little more, it's not that. It's basically garage door open and we're just talking, that kind of thing. And a beautiful day here in Colorado. It's going to be somewhere in the 80s. So hopefully I'll be able to sneak in a ride and get my daughter on a bike and that kind of thing. So in any case, put a little welcome here. Live from Colorado. Alrighty, so thanks again for joining me. So topic, we're going to start off. We're looking at, I have to do some timestamps here so I can make it a little bit easier for those that are watching on the replay. And if you're not watching us on the replay, please put comments in below to share your experiences and so forth. This is actually a community too. The first bullet point is basically the oversupply of inventory glut. What that really is we built a lot of inventory. The cycling industry built a ton of inventory right after COVID because there's a huge shortage. And not going to go into too much detail of that part of it because basically it's dumb because they were like, oh, we're going to just keep on going forever. The projections a couple of years ago when they realized they built way too much stuff was like, oh, so we have like 3 to 5 years worth of inventory. Well, guess what? The economy hit a hard stop. People stopped buying new stuff, and all of a sudden that 5-year turnaround window on inventory they were sitting on that's already either still owe more money on or paid off and just tied up equity is gone even further. Yeah, another 7 to 10 year of inventory in certain categories and certain companies, and some of those are squeaking about that is bigger brands that have a lot of warehouses of inventory. Well, that could be in their favor in the sense of our opposing situation here in the States, but globally that is not a great thing to be in because it's all about turns, right? They want to build as much product, and this is business 101, and that applies to all retails. They want to build only a certain amount that will be a pretty much 80% to 90% sell-through. And then the 10%, whatever's left, is either replacement, damage, or they can just dump it and make it go away with minimal loss, and they get the high profit yield off of that 80 to 90%. So it's a numbers game with these guys. It always has been, and it always will be. So with that particular thing, they were thinking those numbers, oh, we're going to be able to sell through this stuff, or it was hard to get built, so now we're going to build up more, or we got prioritized to allow to build a whole bunch of stuff because these manufacturers is really kind of them overseas going, well, we're not going to give you any attention unless you're going to buy quadruple the units that you usually would purchase anyway. If not, you're good to go in line. So it was kind of a bad, poisonous situation from the get-go, from 21 to 22. And that forced a lot of, or made them feel like they were forced to build up a lot more excess inventory and so forth. But in any case, that being said, it's kind of interesting that how everything is twist and turn with the oversupplied inventory. And of course, the companies decide like, okay, we need to recover some of our running capital. So what they did is put everything on sale. What I saw was Specialized basically popped the top, probably 2022 to 23, around there is when they started dumping stuff. And it was in the fall. I believe I have a video around that time too, where it's like, we got to get rid of everything. And they just started discounting everything. And then all the other companies follow suit. Although Trek was one of the, I would say they held out for another 6 to 9 months because I think they had a good enough running capital. I mean, this is all just an opinion piece and just my perspective of seeing it from the outside or being an inside for the last 35 years. So they probably had enough running capital to hold off on those sales until basically the season hit. But ever since then, for the last 2 years, they've been just dumping and dumping and dumping. So you'd think they would sell through a lot of the inventory. Well, they did to some point, but they sold through all the stuff that was popular, and they're still stuck with all the not so popular inventory that they overpurchased and overbuilt and just sits there and collecting dust. We're talking 1 or 2, maybe 3 years worth of inventory in certain categories. Case in point, a couple people chimed in like, yeah, I bought a bike, a new bike, and it's been sitting there for 1.5 years on the sales floor at the local bike shop. And they, heavily discounted it because they just need it to go away. It's all about, like I was talking about before, it's all about turns. They have to have so many turns. In the bike shop and in retail, they're looking for 3 to 4 turns a season on each category. So when you don't have that in the bigger scale, grand scheme of things, that really enables them to function correctly. So with that inventory flux, it's all been weird. So talking about that inventory, it's very challenging. They usually leveraged a lot of their dealers to take commitments. Now, like Trek has their own locations, and they have to pretend that they're the bike shops that are making them have a commitment of projections of what they're going to be able to carry for a certain amount of time and be able to have those turns within those particular markets. Well, it's been a crippling situation for them because a lot of shops were not performing very well, which they've been cutting back. So everything is basically at best murky, as in for projections of building anything new. So anything going forward here, it's going to be very light and polite, knowing exactly their bread and butter stuff. Trek about a year and a half ago was reducing their SKUs to, by 40%, which is a huge amount. So in other words, like you have one jersey that has 8 colors, well, it's now down to 6. Well, and they also did reduction of different models too. I mean, they would had to because it was getting out of control. It was like too much. And I worked as an inventory manager in the Trek store, and also worked for a company called Retail Toolkit, which is an inventory management system. So I got to see the overly built SKU counts from all vendors, helping bike shops, categorize their inventory and so forth. So with that kind of insights, I knew it was like, it's just too much fat. They're like end all be all of everything. And one company is trying to carry everything, as well as another company is trying to carry everything from shoelaces to shoes to cleats to bikes, so, and everything, helmets and everything in between. And then they have their concept stores and they try to make you a concept store, or now they have their own stores. And it's just a hot mess. So inventory was basically a crippling issue for these big companies, and they're still challenged with that today, and it still will be challenging on a higher level for them for the next 5 years. It's just not great for them. So to keep above water, and there's a lot of companies that just lost out because they just can't do it anymore, or the funding's not there, the interest rates are too high, and that's a whole nother back end of it where to be honest, a lot of these companies are borrowing money and hoping to be able to return on that investment as a shorter period of time and be able to pay it all off before their interest rates go too high up. But in any case, that's just the crazy that portion of the nutshell is inventory oversupply, and there still are, because you're still seeing sales regardless of this whiplash of threading of costs in the United States. I mean, there's still bikes on sale. I did a few posts on that. And then there's also parts. I've been finding like not everything has gone up in price to regular retail and over and beyond. Some things have. Let's not be wrong about that, but not everything. So you may not, it's kind of like one of those things is you may not get exactly the same or what you want in a 10-speed chain, but there's still 10-speed chains available. And some of them might be fairly inexpensive on sale. So it's there, but it might be exactly what you want, that kind of thing. Same thing for bikes. It might be the great bike, but it's not your size, and that kind of thing. So inventory is going to be just kind of sputtering in a way. So for the sell-through rates and so forth, that's going to be a hard thing. But you're going to still see items being sold on sale in the United States for sure, if not globally as well. So going into the next bullet point would be the economical uncertainty. Well, we've hit some pretty hardcore headwinds here, and it's kind of been a slow degradation, but it like the floor fell underneath us about 4 months ago. And I don't need to go into the economical, or I don't need to go to the political portion of it, but the political portion has a huge play of the economical extension of hardships that we're enduring at this particular point. Basically, the bottom line is a lot of people are nervous about their jobs, their incomes, and the cost of living. And when all those are become uncertainty, people are not going to be buying bigger ticket items. They're not going to be buying that brand new bike or the mountain bike or the bike rack or go on that trip that's going to be renting bikes, or, there's a cascade effect to this. Well, a lot of people, they're still cycling. They're still riding, regardless of economics. And actually, sometimes the economics could be a benefit because people are going to drive less because they want, they're going to commute to work on a bicycle versus drive their car. They may not buy that second car or get rid of that second car, and then they're riding and using alternate buses, bikes, and so forth, which in the cycling community realm, which is a big portion of it, it's not the only piece, but that also alludes to e-bikes, has become a very great alternate source of commuting. So let's say, you're not the strongest cyclist or just don't ride that much at all, and 5 miles is not too bad. But when you say 10 to 15 miles between bike paths and going through in neighborhoods and so forth, that's a kind of a turnoff on a lot of people. But if you add that electric assist element to it, therefore that makes that ride manageable both ways. So therefore that 5 to 10 mile commuting that's up to maybe 15 mile becomes a possibility. And heck, an e-bike is a hell of a lot cheaper than a car, and the cost of everything that equates to it, like insurances and taxes and everything else. So when you're looking at an alternate, you might be able to shed a bike, and then those cargo e-bikes have become even more popular over the last few years. It's great. It gives it a great opportunity, especially in the warmer months, or if you have a more temperate climate in your neck of the woods, that becomes an actual thing. So the economical uncertainty has shifted a lot of people possibly out of buying bigger ticket items. And again, like I mentioned before, they dropped their pants off of basically all their higher end, the mid-range componentry and bikes in the last 2 to 3 years. Well, that preconditions the market that we're not going to buy anything unless it's on sale. So even with this tariff scares of prices going up, people are still uncertain about their economical state. That's not a big enough tease for them to actually go out to buy something. We're like, maybe not. They're still going to wait till it's on sale because they're still uncertain about what the state of the state is, either for themselves or their family members, or, I'm just as volatile myself. My wife, if she has a hardship with her business that she is in, or industry she is in, I'm probably going to be doing a lot less of this, looking for another job. So that's the, it's all uncertainty. And yes, things look okay for now, but it's not a guarantee long term. So when you're looking at that, between interest rates being higher up, Basically, in the United States, the housing market really dictates a lot of our economical state. There's more inventory in houses than there are buyers, so it's actually now, instead of a seller's market, it's actually a buyer's market, but the interest rates have not dropped down. Therefore, it's really added a cascade effect across the whole board of that. So, I mean, a lot of you understand that portion of it, but the economical uncertainties for a lot of people is not really helping any of these big manufacturers, Giant, Trek, Specialized, Pond, trying to move inventory, because they're not wanting to buy. Even though it's on sale, there's still going to be a reserve. And then again, if you think about it, most of the people who bought a bike that's a $5,000 to $10,000 price range in the last 3 years on sale is not going to be buying another bike anytime soon. Not saying there's not sales going on, they are, but not nearly as fast units as they need them to be, relating back to the inventory portion of it. So that leads us to the other portion, is shifting consumer preferences, which is exactly what I was alluding to. People are getting more into e-bikes. The e-bike business is still booming. Go Guava just had a video that's released today. I'll put a link in the description below when I get after this video. But it was very interesting because he's saying his business has jumped 700%. Well, his business does relate to e-scooters, e-bike motors, and so forth, as well as regular bikes. But that's a good portion of his basically increase from last year's sales. So his business, he shifted into the e-bike realm, where therefore he's been capitalizing on a lot of that being known in the market. Josh at Precision E-Bike in my neck of the woods, which in Fort Collins, which I'll put a link below as well. Great guy. Also have a featuring video of in my library. Is awesome. Reason being is that's in a scenario is, as bike shops, we have to help leverage shops that are very precise in those niches. In other words, I don't do suspension work, so I send it to Dirt Labs and Lawmont. I don't do e-bike stuff. I send it to Josh at Precision E-Bike. Reason being is I don't have all the tooling for everything. It'd be almost virtually impossible for one man in the garage or one person in the garage with a one shop to do all everything. Like Trek and Specialized are trying to do that with their locations, but they're realizing that's hard work. It just doesn't really translates to a huge dollar in sales profitability to the guys with the pencil pushing and all that kind of thing. So therefore, smaller shops are leveraging other shops that do more niche work. Therefore, we can be focused on what we do well, and they can focus on what they do well. So the shifting of the preference of consumers, going to that part of it, e-bike is portion of it. Everybody's looking for something on sale because either they're preconditioned to it because everything has been on sale, and still there's a lot of inventory still out there, as well as it's just the customer's insecurities about the economical state, so they're not going to be paying for a lot. But there's also, keep yourself sane component to it. So yeah, if you need to go out and put some new tires on your bike and they're now $10 more, you're still going to spend that difference because that bike is going to, giving you a health and mental security. I mean, that kind of thing. That can be absorbed. But when you're looking at a bike that has a 10% from, for the sale price of $4,000 to now 4,400, that's a pretty big, that's a bigger pill to swallow. So yeah, the economical shift has changed, and I've even noticed on my end of it, I do have affiliates through Amazon and have an Amazon store. A lot of the clicks in the last few months have been going down. In other words, it's not that I'm not promoting more or any of that nature. It's still all out there. A lot of it's connected to these YouTube videos where precise tools and so forth are being used. The videos are still being watched. People are just not buying. So therefore, you're seeing a decline of the click rate on online sales. So yeah, opportunity later on will be flourish when I have everything set up for my perspective, but as relying as an income, that is definitely not something I am relying on an income currently. It's going to be something as, I'm laying out the groundworks for 5 to 10 years from down the road. But any case, with the shifting consumer preference, it's definitely changed for sure. And pretty much at this point, there's like a lot of people are not sheltered from what's going on. So somebody's either affected by directly, or they have family members or friends that either lost jobs and are trying to find work and they just can't find it, or the market's become because a lot of things scaled back. There's not as many job opportunities as there was 6 months ago. And that's troublesome. Will that correct itself over time? Sure, hopefully, but there's no guarantee. So those readjustments that we can't go to the fancy Whole Foods and buy all our food and be expensive. Now we're going down to Walmart and like, yeah, the vegetables are not as bright and fresh and pretty, but at least it's still food. So those are a lot of households that are affected by that. Even if you're not affected by it immediately like us, we're still affected by our surroundings. Therefore, we're taking precautions in that nature just in case. So there's the shift in the consumer consumption preferences right now. That's a long-winded way to talk about it. We're scary. But I'm going to there's gold nuggets here. Just hold on with it. I just had a couple more points here to talk about. Supply chain issues. Well, we had those, and now we have them again. It's related to tariffs. And it's like the whiplash, paralyzing headache portion of all this. It's kind of insane. That whiplash has caused a lot of companies to not purchase anything, especially if it was coming from China. And they're just either sitting on the docks, never got production, and we're getting a couple months into it. These companies cannot forecast or hardly plan from going forward. They're paralyzed. Reason being is they don't know what everything's going to cost going forward. So hopefully they still have some over inventory to kind of push through to keep the business going, but they're going to have to do a lot of shedding and layoffs and closing of stores and relocation of like Specializes, offices in Lafayette, which is close to Boulder, to the main, their main company. Sorry, I got some local motorcyclists. In any case, so there, a lot of companies are shifting, closing factory locations. Like Univega, I believe, is no longer going to have an assembly plant, which is owned by and ran by one of the big Kent International, which builds a lot of bikes for Target and Walmart, and I think they do the Ozark Trail series for them or something like that. Correct me if I'm wrong. Definitely put it in the comments below or put it in the chat. But in any case, you're looking at a lot of those. They have it already has. It's not a supply chain issue of getting something built and sent in. It's just they don't know what's going to be popped with a huge tariff one week and not the other, and there's no deals. If you're watching from the out of the United States in, it's crickets here on the tariff thing. Like they've made no deals, and there's no. I mean, they would tote on the top of their lungs like, "Oh, we got a great deal with this country," and whatever. It's still all blanket tariffed, and everything's so uncertain, and everything's going through court processes. So with that being said, companies like Trek Specialized, International, Pon, all of them that sell stuff in the United States are really kind of scratching their head. Case in point, Silka was releasing a new pump, which a lot of them didn't make it in the United States because the tariffs on them were way too expensive. So all that, if they're an international company like Trek and Specialized and Pon and Giant, all that inventory is going to other markets, and hopefully they can bolster and actually recoup some of part of their losses, or just keep their company going with that particular market trend, because it's basically made the United States dead in the water for a lot of these companies. So that's very unfortunate, because right here I'm in the hot mess, middle of America, Colorado, and we're seeing all kinds of weirdness going on. In any case, that's where we're at. And going into just the kind of the bike perspective of it, the decline of kids' bikes. Well, we have decline of kids in the United States. So we're some areas, like our area here, they're moving schools or shutting down buildings because we just don't have the population that support that anymore. It's shrinking. So you got that as in just a general change. And then you have, well, the cost of the kids' bikes. And I walked through Walmart the other day, which I'm really close to one, and almost half their racks are empty. This is the time of year those racks should be bolstering with bikes. Well, why are they empty? Well, they didn't have any sent over because they're not going to pay an absorbent amount of tariffs to make that $200 bike and now a $500 bike. That's just ridiculous. So it's just not working. And that actually translates to not just bikes, clothing, everything else that's kids, you know, all that kinds of stuff. So it's a little bit harder to find. There's not as much many quantities. Some stuff is still on sale, but it's just that particular part of the actual cycling industry is kind of shrinking, although it's booming in other countries. I wonder why that is. But in any case, that's just one of those areas where e-bikes have gotten bigger, gravel is still pretty strong, but the other categories like mountain bikes, you know, they still have a good amount of units and so forth, but a lot of these hybrids and other offshoot lines and brands and models are kind of just not being purchased. They're, even though they have a lot of them, or they sold through them, they don't have anything available to sell, or people are just not going to buy them at all. They just don't fit the niche. And there alludes to the used market. The used market is killing new bike sales. The reason being is we have a huge, fat, gluttonous amount of used bikes inventory in the United States. Massive amount. We've been consuming country for all these decades. Now we have all these leftovers laying out in people's garages. People are kind of worried about, you know, their economical state. They're trying to sell them. Now there's a whole bunch of them on the market, which is driving the prices down. Therefore, those who are looking for a kid's bike, as well as myself, my daughter's next size up from a 20 to a 24, I'm going to find myself a stellar 24-inch mountain bike for her for a fraction of the price of even a Walmart price bike. Keep that in mind. So all these different pieces and points are eroding the big corporation's ability to just function. And that is huge. And the company shifts, we're going to talk about that. You know, the latest news on a lot of that is shifting, closing warehouses, you know, closing facilities by companies going under, then the names being rebought, and they're changing the format. Revel, the one in Carbondale, I think it was Carbondale, Colorado, some remote town up in the mountains. They were pretty big in the mountain bikes, and you know, they had a pretty good success. It's a newer company, got bought by another company. This is the same old song and dance, an investment company, what have you, drives it into the ground, like happened to Kona, and then the name gets back to the original owners. Well, the owners released right off the bat, they had a new game plan. So in other words, interesting enough, they're not going to be having bikes built and shipped in warehouse in the United States and allocated out of there, which has been pretty much the standard norm for the last 50 years. They're going to actually just take up the idea and the concept what Temu and AliExpress have been doing, direct to consumer from their factory in Taiwan. So their partnerships with the Taiwan factory there, they're like, oh, you build it up here, you hang on to it, and then we'll send it individually, sold to each individual unit, sold to online, basically purchases. So, or shops are going to carry them, get it directly shipped from there, skipping a warehouse and all the costs of that equated. Brilliant, but will it work? We'll see. They've had to do a lot of numbers and cents and all that. And quite honestly, people, if you're in the United States watching this, most of their stuff is made over in different countries. And when it comes to the bicycle itself, a lot of the bikes that were produced in the United States back in the day when Trek was producing a lot of them, was just the frame. A lot of other bits are actually hodgepodge from other countries, which all the bikes are still put together from different countries, different warehouses, different facilities. Like one company makes great componentry, like Shimano and SRAM. That is actually different facilities than the actual frame building that is from Giant or Merida that puts the bikes together. So it's always been a global effort to build a bike. Last time they did an all-inclusive, everything from tire, spoke nipples to end caps on a bike was in the Schwinn era of the 60s. Maybe the 70s. And, You know, we haven't done that in several decades, and we're not going to revert in that direction. We may have some hybrid versions of it as assembly plants and that kind of thing, but the majority of the bike as materials and so forth are still made overseas. Therefore, you're going to have that kind of cost equated or economical savings, however you want to look at it. So the big shift is huge. It's just going one of those things where it's just, it's a hot mess for these companies. So, you know, the recap, the perspective of how Trek's Specialized Pond, you're going to see some movement from them, but you're not going to see, you know, it's going to be adjustments, and a lot of them are not going to be announced. It's going to be, you know, quietly layoffs here, closing or shrinking office space there. They've already been doing these adjustments for the last 3 years, and it's like the question is going to be how many levers do they have left to pull to keep them going forward. And they're still trying to release like, ooh, we got this latest new product, but is there a market to actually purchase that new product? Not here in the United States. Not a lot of units are going to be sold here. It'll be global. It'll be like maybe the European market. Maybe those people down south in Australia, New Zealand are like, ooh, we still have good jobs. We don't worried about our economical state of the state. I'm going to go get that Nauru Campanoli 13-speed drivetrain. But here in the States, we're like, we'll probably have it on our showroom floors here and there in some of your shops locally, but you're not going to see very many of those units move. That's just going to be what it is. Going back to the, thanks Mike for chiming in, appreciate it. Absolutely, joining the conversation. Even go back to Schwinn, trailers were French. Yeah, I was watching a tidbit on, what was it? It's back in the day, I think the early days of Specialized was, you know, they went to, in the 70s, went over to Europe and saw how frame manufacturing was being done to make the, you know, the first mountain bikes and so forth back in the day. So, you know, the European market has always been, in manufacturing as well, has always been a big core piece of the cycling industry. And it still is today, and I see that going forward. What we're seeing right now is some of these companies, either they're United States companies trying to function, or companies that are out of the United States trying to deal with the market of the United States. It's just going to be a hotbed mess. Will this correct itself and fix itself in the next 3 to 6 months? Absolutely not. If anything, it's probably going to get a little worse going into the fall season. If they do the corrections that they're going to need to be doing for the next model year inventory for 26 to 27, it might find at some point a shortage at that particular point. But then again, going back to the glutton amount of used products and inventory we have already, the full bike scene is probably not going to be, that they're not going to be able to recapitalize on that market. It's lost to them for a long time. But the consumables are like chains, tires, tubes, helmets, some clothing, that kind of thing. So that flips the switch to, yes, drum roll, to the bike shops are doing great. Yeah, it's interesting that we've had a little disruption, and being a small shop, we know how to do all these corrections. Even new shops like Oguava, they're a newer shop. They're like a year or two old, and they're able to do some on-the-fly adjustments. Now they're claiming to have 700% increase over last year's sales, which goes to show that there is some great opportunities for the smaller shops to adapt. And we're going to look at that starting now. Okay, just doing a little timestamp for me so I can do this. First off, like we talked about inventory for big boys. Well, inventory for bike shops is the same thing. We were able to put it in a situation, a lot of these shops are able to go to this situation and go, hey, we're not going to do a preseason order of 10, 15% over whatever number you're coming up with that should be carrying in our store. We're not going to do any pre-bookings of all that. We're just going to buy on demand. And a lot of that, we may do a few, but the bike companies are in such dire straits. They used to be able to leverage twist the arms of bike shops like, well, we'll just put another dealer down the street. Well, there's no other dealer down the street. And, you know, they are now closing their own stores like Trek and Specialized and Pond. Although Pond just opened up or bought one in Boulder. That was a strategic move more than anything else. They may be a little bit stronger to maneuver, and we'll talk about that in a different time. But in any case, it's just they're happy to sell to anybody at this point. Although, you know, even though I went to the bike show, Cabinet in Las Vegas, and that was the overall consensus to all the smaller bike lines, like, if we can get you in, we'll have you sell bikes if you want to sell bikes. I mean, it's just they don't have that leverage anymore. Therefore, a lot of shops have the power back. They're able to go, no, we're not just going to be carrying your brand. We're going to carry 3 other brands, and we're going to cut your brand down to a 10th of what we're going to carry, and just be happy with what you get out of us, because there's nobody else you're going to be selling to. And, you know, obviously they're not saying it in a mean way like that, but they are saying those particular bullet points to these companies of saying, I'm only going to buy when I need it. And same thing for their wholesale supplies for the consumables from QBP, JBI, and various other companies like BTI. I know it's a lot of acronyms, but these are the wholesalers that buy all that inventory from Schwinn, or not Schwinn, Shimano, SRAM, Campy, and tires and everything. They warehouse that for bike shops like for me to buy and consumables. Well, the current trend of that inventory up to 2019 was already that kind of fixed, but we only bought when we needed. So we got down to 5 tubes, we just buy another 10 tubes. And we would buy once a week or twice a week and get that in pretty quick. It was great, it worked well and went smooth. COVID crazed everything up, and now the bike shops have gotten that power back, and even more so because now they don't have to buy everything under the particular brand's checklist. They don't have to carry inventory that doesn't apply to the market anymore. At least they don't need to. They should be able to go back to those companies like, no, we're only going to carry this in a limited amount of numbers. This is what's going to keep us healthy, because if we're not healthy, we're not going to be here to sell any of your stuff going down the road. And sure enough, you're not going to be able to put a store in here because you can't afford to do it now anyway. We're taking all the risk. And therefore, there alludes to another article in Bicycle Retailer a few months back that the companies should be paying the bike shops to take the real estate of that storefront, because the bike shop owners are taking all the risk. So in any case, inventory corrections. Yeah, you may not be able to walk into the shop and get exactly, like I mentioned before, that 10-speed chain that you've been getting, but they'll be able to order it, or they'll have something on hand that will work for the pinch moment, but it's not going to be exactly what you want, which you can still probably order online from Amazon, buyer beware, it might be fake, or from like JensonUSA, or more of a reputable like 365 cycles, which basically is QBP directly to your house. In any case, those, there's still outfits out there. You can get the chain yourself and bring it in and have them installed if they can have a hard time finding it themselves. So therefore, that's a big win for cash flow for a lot of the bike shops. They don't have to invest all that money, and they're going to have it, even though they were scared of we're going to run out. They've had so much of it, and we'll still be able. I haven't had any problem so far of getting chains, handlebar wrap, cables and housing, either on discount or at least available. So it's still pretty solid in the States, because there's not that many people buying. Let's just put it that way. So it really helps the bike shops to keep that inventory, and which alludes to the other big gold nugget that's happening for a lot of bike shops is basically service. Service is our golden parachute. And smaller shops have bigger service departments usually, and now they can invest more into that service department because it is actually producing an outcome. People are still riding their bikes. People are still getting tune-ups done. People are still, finding, either finding a used bike to get fixed up or all those kinds. And yes, they're combating the world of YouTube and social media to learn how to work on some of that stuff. But a lot of bike shops have gone down to more niche, like Josh Precision e-bike again. does e-bike motors, does the testing on the motors, on the batteries and so forth. A lot of, even if you're a novice, you may not have all that equipment or want to buy all that equipment. So therefore, a lot of the specialty work is becoming our wheelhouse of, bleeding brakes and detailing frames and waxing chains and all those things to help you keep going on that journey. So service has been a huge benefit to a lot of shops, and this started about 2 years ago. Some shops that are only service oriented only and used bikes have been doing wonderful. The bike shops have only done new only. They've been having a hard time and struggling. And a lot of those shops have just done new only, have now shifted to a lot of used, and they're having huge success with that because the inventory is there. You don't have to buy a lot from the main brands. They can just bring in inventory, have their mechanics, keeps them busy, gives them a paycheck, and the company at the bottom line still makes a profit. So there's ability to just, roll that all up, and it's just, at this particular juncture in our market, it's gold. So with the service departments, there lies an opportunity to hopefully bolster more mechanics to get into the industry and actually have an income. But we'll see about that. It all depends how fast things whiplash around. But having the service departments really working on those more technical things, I mean, a lot of people know how to fix a flat. A lot of people know how to maybe do some minor adjustments on their derailleurs and so forth. I just did the Bike MS last weekend, which is a charity ride here in Colorado as well as across the United States. And it's a 2-day event. I'm out there, helping out, donating my time and parts. And I have a crew. It's a family weekend kind of thing. And I just had a video dropped last night that, if you watch it, you get a snapshot of what the gist of it is. But the things we're working on is like either on the fly, they've gotten a pinch while they're riding, broken spokes, broken cables into shifters. We got a couple of those. And over the years, like bottom brackets, hubs, brakes, everything under the sun, of course. And we try to, as a triage, try to get everything together and then continue their ride on these charity rides. And that being said, with those services, they either they know how to do it themselves, or they just don't, obviously on the fly, they may be able to, but they don't have the resources to keep going on their 75-mile ride that day. So there eludes like the opportunities for a lot of shops to, help those customers. And guess what? That goes into my second portion of this, or third portion actually, of the gold nuggets. I need a timestamp here, sorry. And drink a little bit of coffee. The cycling community. Cycling community has always been there. A lot of shops kind of walked away from it because they just felt like they felt like they didn't need to deal with it. Some went into it too deep and gave out too many discounts and actually went under because they had too many discounts. Because everybody would just buy through the club. I don't know. That's a whole other hot mess. But what there is a huge, especially here and where, okay, I guess I'm jaded a little bit because I'm in an area where cycling is huge amongst a lot of other activities. Colorado is like outdoor haven. It's just that. But even the smallest communities will still have a cycling club, or the bike shop will have group rides and all those kinds of things. Case in point was in Vegas, not a huge population there, even though it's growing massively. A decent size, not compared to where I'm at, but they do have cycling groups, and even though all the cyclists are riding, they have little groups with little groups, and that's the community, right? And a lot of the smaller shops have kind of always had a pulse on those community pieces. Big corporation shops like Trek, Mike's Bikes, InCycle from Specialized didn't. Case in point, when Lee's was purchased, the owner said to the buyer of the bike shops, like, you need to take up all these events. They didn't do one. They just like, yeah, whatever, blew you off like a parent. They're like, no, this is our business, we're not going to do anything. And now, oddly enough, in the dire straits situation, those corporate individuals are now seeing as community as an opportunity. Cases you probably see with Trek, they have like their little club thing going on now, as well as Specialized donating mechanics to work on the MS last weekend. Hopefully they showed up, because apparently some people didn't. In any case, a little miffed about that. I'm going to be talking about some shops later, and I'll be bad-mouthing them for sure if they didn't do their commitment, contracted commitment, by the way, helping out a charity ride. But anyway, back to the community. Community is a great gold mine for us smaller shops, and we've always known this. And it's one of those things that's becoming more double down. Why? Because we're out there helping out. People have a word of mouth. That beats any kind of banner that you have on any email or website, because people are always going to go, do you know a guy? Pun intended. But in any case, it's one of those things where it's a trusted, going in the shop, seeing the same faces, knowing the person that's going to be working on your bike and actually talking about your bike experience. That's one of my biggest successes, is a lot of people want to know the person and actually talk to them who's working on their bike and having that personable connection. And then again, all of a sudden they're bringing their buddy's bike or the second bike that they have. But I'm the person that they go to. It's one of those, they have that warm fuzz feeling, warm hug. I'm not going to alienate whatever they ride, and just you get them out there. And I'm community based. I'm doing the charity events. I'm not doing the race events. I mean, there's a place for that too, sure. But for the real community build, it's about just people riding bikes, from e-bikes to commuting to recreational gravel ride races-ish. People make joke that the MS is a race. It's not. It's a community charity ride, that kind of thing. So the community base, and this is also a benefit or factor that changes shift, is the head coordinator of the Bike MS Colorado chapter. This is probably one of the first years in a long time that I know I've been working with MS over the last 35 years that they've had a bike mechanic designated for each rest stop. And that's huge, because you're talking like 7 to 10 rest stops each direction, if not more. I don't know the total, never looked at the map this year, but I'll only worry about where I need to go. I'm just, go do it. But in any case, it's one of those scenarios where a lot of shops are actually understanding the leveraging that piece. And it's not just the event, it is building the community up to that event. So if you're looking to get that bike tuned up at a official MS bike shop that's promoted these shops, saying, hey, get them tuned up, ready to go, get your service ready, either get a little discount or something like that, but at least you're getting to a supported shop to the event you're going to do. Those are going to give more warm hugs, or at least in the head is going to be like more inviting for you to roll in with your bike. And a lot of people, and my wife is included in this scenario, is like, she may not feel like her bike is the best. Or that great, but it is. And hey, if it has 2 wheels and shifts and it's safe to ride, that's a win. And that should be the feeling and the projected culture of most shops, which have gone away because they're really pushing that high-end elitist world, where those family-oriented shops are been there, but now we're the last guys standing. So, it's came full circle from the 90s to now, going, hey, we keep doing what we're doing, and people resonate with us, and that's why we're still here. So the community portion of it is huge, and that's where the shops have become a hub. There's one shop in Las Vegas, is Pedal and Pour. They have a little coffee shop right next to it. Going back to that Pond acquisition of Full Cycles in Boulder, which used to be a Specialized store, which, Specialized lost a dealer, and all of a sudden you got Cannondale and Cervello's in that location. They also had a coffee shop, which they shut down because they don't understand coffee. I don't know how hard that is, because I drink so much of it. I mean, you should know how coffee works, but in any case, that's a joke. I know a retail business of coffee shops is definitely as struggling and challenging as like all others. So, case in point, don't be hating on that point. It's just a joke. It's like, yeah, everybody can pump up tires, but doesn't make you a mechanic. Not really. But hey, at least you're starting, and there's your journey, the beginning of the journey. That's great. All right, a couple shout outs. Randy, thank you for joining. No, you didn't much. You're already living in the industry. I know. I hope everything's going really well in your neck of the woods. Frank, thank you for jumping in. Oh yeah, the bike tires. I did notice that some of the bike tires that specific models for a customer of mine did jump like 15 to 20%, because they wanted the Continental 3000 tubeless. But then again, I can probably find a tire in a different brand cheaper, but they specifically wanted to go with that one. So yeah, if you're looking for specifics, yes, but I don't know. There's some time, But then again, like I said before, if you didn't catch the inventory portion of it, there's going to be inventory there. Some of it will be on sale still. It may not be exactly what you want, or it might be some of the high-end stuff that's just not moving. It's been there for a long time, or just lost interest. But tires, chains, tubes, cables in the housing, bar tape, pedals, those are all considered consumables. In other words, you wear them out. At some point here, they may get more expensive over a period of time, especially the disruption of our inventory and the tariff thing. But in any case, that's a great point there. They are gone a little bit. But then again, though, is $20 more for a set of tires gonna stop you from riding? No, it's absorbable. You can take it, but then again, on the full bike. But that might change your mind if it's a whole wheel set or something of that nature, for sure. So going to that community feel and on to the next bullet point here is talking about personalizing experiences. This is my wheelhouse. This is, your experience with me is the same with every customer. And it is personalized because I'm the only person. So you get to meet the mechanic, and you get to meet the salesperson, and you get to meet the person that's going to shoot your YouTube video on your bike, and you're going to meet the person that's going to meet you out there on the Bike MS and help work on your bike. I'm that personalized person. A lot of shops are starting to shift to that, bringing those mechanics out behind that wall or getting rid of the wall completely. And I'm not telling you to demolition your service department and all that and redo it all, but it's just, you really need to, basically is back in the 90s where even the guy and the gal in the back that was fixing flats and building bikes would go out on the sales floor when we were busy and sell bikes and tubes and help out with customers. It was like all hands on deck every day, any day of the week. And that was it. I mean, there was not that many of us. And when we got busy on a Saturday, hey, Travis, come on, get out here. Help this person with some water bottles or whatever, and everybody knew how to run the POS system, how to ring somebody up. That was your day one of bike shop life. And that's how it should be, need be. And that's where the customers are, getting that personalized experience. Then you have all the specialty services that goes on top of that, like bike fits, mechanics actually going through your bike, detail, pre and after. Service riders are disappearing. It's actually just mechanics and they'll take care of it. That kind of thing. Not all shops, but the smaller ones have always been kind of like that. And that's where people a lot have been seeking out. Case in point, I have customers that come from the south side of Denver, to Castle Rock, which is about a 2-hour drive from here south, all the way north to Cheyenne and Laramie and further north than that. Reason being, they want to know the person and actually entrust the person with their baby, which is named most of the time their bike, and have me work on it. And I'm brutally honest, and straightforward. I only will do what needs to be done and preventive and so forth. And also, I do some extras that I don't charge for. I'm not like a nickel and dime every line item. I give a lot of labor away. But then again, my overhead is a lot lower, so I feel more comfortable with it. They feel more comfortable, and everybody's great. And I'm on an appointment-based system. Therefore, you drop the bike off, give me a few days. I'll work it into my flow of working of stuff. And then that bike was going to get as best detail attention as it could ever get, because I'm doing it on the mechanic's time, not on your 24-hour lie from a shop. Because you're sometimes, you may get most of that tune-up done within that 24-hour period, but I worked in high volume. I've done it. I've wrenched it. I tried to manage it as a manager. I'm I'm sorry, those 24-hour services is something to maybe stay away from, or unless you just need something simple done and they just rope it in for that. It's not the best scenario for your bike and your cycling experience. I hate to say it, but I'm saying it. Some shops are set up to do that and do it well. Corporate shops, they advertise it, and they're going to have some challenges because they're not all the shops across their whole chain are going to have the same skill sets amongst all of them. So therefore, they're going to have some challenges with that. But any day, I mean, I've worked in high volume, and we try to do the best we can, of course. Every mechanic is a person, so don't hate them because they're working for a corporate store, and they may be a great mechanic, and they may do everything as just as attention to detail as I do in my own scenario. But for me, I'm a hell of a lot more relaxed, so I'm a little more focused. And if something that's tripped me up and I need to mull over it, I'll give it a night. I think about it. I work some other things. I'll Google some things, and then I approach it, and I get it fixed, and I hopefully get it fixed right. That kind of thing. So, because I know the importance of not just the keeping the business going, is the importance of the consumer, the community, to have the best experience possible and be aware of any kind of, shortcomings of a bike that may have, like your brake pads are a little low, or tires may have a little more life to them, but that kind of thing, but you may need to replace those out here soon, all those things. And at the end of the day is trying to, keep that experience good and positive for the consumer as best as my ability. That's my golden rule to myself as I'm in this experience and scenario. And then again, I'm talking to the person face to face. It's a lot different when I'm behind a wall or in the basement cranking up bikes. I don't ever see that person. I don't care, right? But if you're talking to them, you hear what their needs are, you double check it, have them test ride it. Did I get all those things right? And if it didn't, after your first couple of rides, come back. We'll make it right. That's the thing. So, that personalized experience is what people are really looking for, because they're really holding on their wallets and they're not going to be pulling out those dollars. And quite honestly, when you do take care of them like that, they're more than happy to hand out those dollars to support you more than just pay you for your services. So yeah, that's a huge gold nugget for a lot of bike shops, and they've been capitalizing on it. And that's where Go Guava, Precision E-Bike, and Blue Sky in Greeley, Swanee's in Las Vegas. Give a shout out to all those shops. They're smaller, they do a lot of service, and the bottom line, they know their customers' names. They know them well when they come in. They know exactly bikes, and maybe not the bike they have in their hands. Like, oh, how was that other bike that I worked on last week? Is that rolling for you? It's you're part of that community. You get that personalized feel, and you don't feel alienated when you walk into a shop like that. That's just all those huge things. It's something that needs to be and has been going that direction. And we're, as a small shop, so far ahead of the corporate stores on that. Now they're trying to catch up and trying to capitalize on that. And they will to some level, which is great, because they all should be doing that, and they should be doing it in the first place. They just need to get that big chip off their shoulder and realize how they got there in the first place, those big companies. Because it wasn't them and their brilliant ideas. It was all those independent bike shops that helped those brands succeeded over the last 3 to 4 decades. In any case. Another big point. I love this one. Is adaptability. I'm so flexible. I need to take more yoga to put myself in a pretzel. In any case, when you're looking at flexibility, Go Guava video today was hit it on the head. And he's had another video too before. It was like, I didn't know I was going to end up going this direction. All of a sudden, they're doing e-bikes and doing e-scooters. And that's where the customers are coming in and asking for. And he was more than happy to fill in that service. Same here. Same in a lot of different markets. If we're adaptable. And the thing is, it's like we've always known this. This is nothing really new. For smaller shops, we've always been adapting and changing with our current market and trends and everything else. But the thing is that we haven't seen it this whiplash ever. Nobody has. Like, oh, you're selling a whole bunch of everything in 2020 and 2021 to not selling hardly anything in 22 and 23, and then trying to figure out, oh, I need to do more service. I need to do used bikes. Never thought about doing used bikes. Now we got to, oh, there's a whole bunch of used bikes out there. I mean, that was my epiphany in 2019. It was like I'm going through Marketplace going, holy crap, that Klein was like $4,000 back in the day. And I could pick it up for 400 bucks. That was the start of it right there. That's what this all came out of, that particular aha moment. And it's been, you know, building off of that for sure. So adaptability is huge. Using social media, Guava's using YouTube. A lot of these other shops are using YouTube or leveraging online sales or selling a whole bunch of used stuff on eBay. They're adapting, buying used bikes, refurbishing them or parting them out, whatever the case may be. You know, those are the things that, you know, my business, I part out bikes, I refurbish frames, I sell full bikes, I do a whole bunch of tune-ups, and I do have a personal touch. And a community that's built and has been watching me through the whole YouTube and social media outlet. And it's like that adaptability wasn't there 15, 20 years ago. And now it is. And a lot of shops are, maybe we should look into that, that kind of thing, or look into other leveraging businesses, which a bike book is another one. It's interesting, hit in the United States just recently. And see if I can find there. Yeah, it's bikebook.co or .com. Look them up. If you're a bicycle retailer or service heavy, I did have a meeting with them. I really haven't had a chance to totally poke around, but coming from an industry side of you know, inventory management to CRMs to customer ticket from beginning to end experience for service departments. It's a program, web or cloud-based, to help you navigate and not very expensive. So if you're currently using Ascend or Lightspeed, it should be a lot cheaper than that, and should give you, it's, you know, it's built for bike shops and that kind of workflow for service heavy. So, and they'll work with you if you're a smaller shop like me, to get you, and they're trying to break into the United States market. They've had a huge success in Europe, and they're trying to line in their vendors too. So like, for example, if you're a Trek dealer, you have Ascend, but you also have access to QBP ordering. So you can order your stuff from Trek, then you can order stuff from QBP all in one spot, and it has an inventory management placement for it. That's what they're trying to accommodate with that. So it's a growing, busting little giant of a concept built by people from the industry. So give them a check out if you're looking for a POS and managing your inventory tickets and so forth. I will hopefully have some videos and stuff on that coming up. I've just been busy just doing my thing. So, but when it slows down for me, I'll definitely be taking advantage of taking a look at that and see if it applies to something my size, but I think it will. Anyway, part of that adaptability, that kind of thing. And the last big bullet point on the gold nuggets of everything, you'd think we were, back in the day, we hated performance as bike shops. We hated Nash Bar. Those wankers just ran us dry, made us super mad about, you know, selling bike chains like $1 more than we can buy them ourselves, and try to, you know, do all of that. Fast forward 30 years, they're no longer, things change, what happens? Bike shops adapted, and direct to consumers, sales are sluggish right now. It's just, it is. People are worried about buying stuff, and they're, you know, granted, you know, Amazon makes it really easy to return things, and various other companies. And I bought something recently that was misshipped. I contacted them. They're more than happy to take care of it. To send the rest of my shipment, should be showing up today. Not a big deal. Things happen. I worked inventory. I totally understand it. The picker was like, box, ship out. Didn't even think about seeing a number 2 there. In any case, you know, the direct-to-consumer scenario, it's going to be interesting because Amazon's been hit by the whole tariff thing hard, because the majority of their stuff is China-made based businesses. And they're trying to leveraging all of that. And it'll be interesting to see what Amazon Prime Day is going to be like this month. If you haven't heard of that, it's the United States, or I don't know. I mean, it is globally. I don't know. I'm not really that versed on Amazon's promotional platform, but looking at their, it's like their off season, it's like off Christmas, Black Friday kind of thing. It'll be interesting to see if there's that many sales and so forth. But not necessarily the price of the sale. It's really going to be interesting if anybody's going to be out there buying. Who's going to be buying, that kind of thing. Check out my Amazon store, my description below, as well as my other affiliate links. That's what helps me support, and going to help me support myself forward to doing more videos and content like this and that. And if you like this kind of content, please like and subscribe and share with your other cycling communities. Like, hey, check out this old fart in the garage telling me weird things about bike industry and working on weird bikes and fun bikes and all that good stuff. And hey, he likes coffee, so, can't be that bad, right? Anyway, whew, a lot of industry stuff. There's a lot of specific articles in Bicycle Retailer that I could pinpoint. And I might look back at certain videos later to pinpoint those later on. But the overall consensus is like, things are changing, and not because of things are great. It's because of just desperate times and scenarios. And everybody loves to watch a great train wreck, but when you love an industry, or at least the portion I'm in, so much, and you've seen how it's really crippling your cycling community, it's challenging. It's hard to have a positive spin on everything sometimes, but at the end of the day, we're trying to, at the front lines of the small local bike shops, we are having huge successes, and if something's not working, we switch in gears within a day and doing something else to be more lucrative and helping out our communities and so forth. I mean, that's at the end of the day, we all like bikes. I mean, that's why a lot of us are still in the industry, because we like riding bikes, we like people that ride bikes, we like the groups, we like the community, we like everything about it. From the technical portion of it to the, sweat and nutrition portion of it. That's how it all is, that kind of thing. In any case, that paints a picture of struggling overall industry right there. Some gold nuggets. I mean, there's some challenges that we have no control over. Some of it's weather. It's like, one of you are saying weather. Dreadful weather and flooding in Sydney at the moment. Oh, Robert, so sorry. I think I saw some of that on the global news. Very cold. Your baby Trek is just in the bedroom. I've had winters like that here too, or falls where but yeah, flooding's horrible. I have a huge flooding story on my wedding day. It's one of the 2013, Fort Collins became an island basically, and our wedding day, half our guests couldn't show up because of the floods, that kind of thing. So, weather is a huge, and my wife is an atmospheric scientist, so a meteorologist. So not that she forecasts, but she does all climate-related, studies of snowpack and agricultural rain and all that stuff. So I'm in tune into your pains there, Robert. Hopefully it dries out for you. Hopefully the damage is very minimal. Hope everybody is safe and doesn't get hurt. Hearts going out to you for sure. Understand those woes for sure. Robert, thank you or Randy, thank you for chiming in again. Yeah, this is the season. Yeah, Randy is part of the service portion of this, and you're lucky to get me for a couple hours, because typically I would just be pulling my hair out. But I worked all weekend, so I figured I can take a little time and just jibber jabber and let you guys listen to me while you're wrenching your little butts off. And hopefully we can brainstorm some great ideas that helps all us out with our communities and so forth as well. That for sure. Yeah, the service is the backbone of survival post-COVID. Yeah, that really showed its colors, Robert, about 2 years ago. For me, because I was just doing really good as just refurbishing bikes, and then I was dumb because I thought I just would stay there. And then all of a sudden that kind of slowed down and dried up, and I was like, all right, I think we're back. We good? Yeah. So I was saying, like, I had a shift service, shift from refurbishing bikes, cut back on that, sell down on my inventory, went into service, and that's, service has been the backbone of what I've been doing. And now from selling bikes is now parting them out, providing good parts for those. Um, yeah. I'm turning and burning right now. Yeah, and burnout is huge because us bike mechanics, when we're doing a higher volume, and because we know the woes, especially if you're your own business owner, like when the good's going, you're taking everything you can, and but take a breath momentarily here and there for your sanity reasons. Go for a nice long bike ride. If you can stand being close to a bike again, being working on so many bikes, see your family, go on a vacation, take a break if you can. Those are the things that will keep you going and make you a better mechanic. And what I'm doing is more, everything is appointment based. So I'll take a couple days for breaks to go see a movie with my daughter, hang out, and that kind of thing. Because those are the things that you can loop them in, like I did for the Bike MS. My daughter had a great time. You can see that video. She had a great time. She wanted to do it again next year. And I don't think I'll make her do 2 days, but like the nicer of the 2 days weather-wise is definitely something I would definitely really was happy to have her join. And that just like my son's 22. Now he wants to be a part of it. He wants to help out and all those things. And it's became more of a family thing, back to the community piece and the personalization of all that. So in any case, yeah, I mean, I love what I do. And there was a point when I was doing a lot of service back in the Parker Bikes days. You work 2 or 3 weeks straight, not have any time off. You do kind of crack a little and you get kind of grumpy. You need to take care of yourself. And if you can adjust your business, Randy, and there's other shop owners out there, to offset the slow time, so you're not relying on all just summertime work or in-season work, the better. I found selling a whole bunch of used, like all these bins get filled up with used parts. Go through them, clean them, and sell them. You can make yourself a couple $100 here and there. That's huge when it's November, December, in January for sure. Make some YouTube videos. Maybe those will help you out, generate some service. You don't have to give service away. If you highlight my services like I do, you get those customers that come in January, February. I was booked this year. I did not have really like dead time. It was like I constantly had repairs still coming in. And if you, again, my volume is lower, my overhead is less, so therefore I can run and function. And then I had a couple of videos that took off that really offset and helped me get into the springtime. So, if you can leverage some used parts, frames, people are out there buying and looking. And if you're willing to ship, which is golden, the shipping is really going to help you out getting that inventory to those who are in season. Like for me, it's December here, but in Florida is their peak season of riding bikes. So those are the case. Sorry, I have a FedEx truck pulled up. But in any case, that's where we're, if you can find those little gold nuggets, and if you're in the chat or watching this on the replay, put some of your findings of positive ways of generating income in the off season. Go for it. This is a community base for cyclists as well. And if you have your favorite shop and you got some good ideas out of this, like let them know, like, hey, you don't have to have them watch my whole videos or whatever, but you can at least mention to them like, hey, this is an idea that might be something to help you out, because they're always listening to some level, and they're not, if they have too much of an arrogance and that they don't listen to their customers, they are not going to be around for very much longer. That's it for that portion of it for sure. All right, that pretty much covers the doom and gloom portion of it. But yeah, let's switch gears and talk about, even if you've been in industry for a little bit, for a hot minute, and you got service or you're a mechanic that's just starting, like we had a great chat with an individual that started off and had some insecurities and all those kinds of things of getting, and want to double check and make sure they're hearing the right thing. But the next step of, you're building bikes, and there's a lot of videos from either the corporates, Trex, or Specialized, or whatever brand may have their own videos, or there'll be videos out there that help you navigate the new bike builds. And heck, the new bike builds are, except for tri bikes, but most of them are pretty easy to put together now because they're manufactured and assembled to be designed to go to the consumer. So that's really helped out a lot for those new bike builds and less. But you still need to adjust derailleurs, still need to adjust brakes, and make sure the wheels are true and that kind of thing. And then once you get all that down, the owner or the head mechanic or the service manager is going to go, hey, it's time for you to start doing tune-ups. So don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. We're going to talk about tune-ups here. Write that note. 120. Okay, so, let's start out with, we're going to put you on doing a tune-up. Well, yeah, the newer bikes, back in the day, we'd have a huge box of parts, and we had to put even the toe straps on and everything, which do you know what a toe strap is? That's that death trap cage that they would put on bikes back in the day. And then we had to put the pedals on. Then we had to put, the whole bar assembly we'd have to put together because it'd just be all disassembled, and learn how to wrap bars, and front wheel will be off, and things will be all mucked up from shipping. And now they got the packaging down to science and that kind of thing. And now it's a little bit easier. So you kind of have to learn what we did back then to do tune-ups. But most bike shops will have their tune-up packages. It's like a light and polite, more intense, and oh my God, I'm gonna be here all day tune-up. So you basically have usually those three packages. And it all depends what kind of, smaller shops or bigger shops. It's either a service rider component to it, either you're doing it yourself or somebody else is, and hopefully you're around to at least ask questions like, what did you tell the customer? What am I going to do this? Hopefully they communicate that well on the service tickets. This guy is in for just a general tune. That's what it says on paper. But when I actually talked to the customer, they had this bungee cord get all wrapped up in the back, and then they felt like it was not right after that. So knowing that, you gotta need to know those details when you start doing service. The basic tune on this particular one is, which is a lot of bike shop basic tunes, is you take the wheels off, check the hubs, adjust them if they need to be adjusted, chew the wheels if they're out of whack. I mean, this one I think is a little bent, that kind of thing. It's a disc, so the truing of the wheels is not the hugest thing, but it should still be important. And then you got to learn how to adjust the rotor if you need to do some cold bending. And then the different brakes, different rotors, different hydraulics, non-cable actuated. These are interesting. The TRPs. They're a hydraulic piston inside the caliper itself. Whew, it's a loud truck for carrying small products. In any case, moment of silence there. In any case, these particular ones are cable and hydraulic. Get a best of both worlds and the horrors of both. I don't know. Maybe everybody has their opinions about it, but it doesn't matter what your opinion is when you're a bike mechanic. You're working on it, and your goal is to make it safe to ride and function at the best ability. So what is most people's hope to get out of a tune-up? It shifts smooth, and it stops, and it feels safe to ride. Well, that's a lot of things, right? Loose hubs will make it feel wobbly, bottom bracket knocking, headset loose, handlebars slip, go to the direction, all those things. And your shop will have a whole checklist of what they do for a bike build. A lot of that's going to translate to doing a first-time repair on small, lower-end tune-ups. Usually lower end tune-ups don't include a drivetrain clean, taking the chain and cassette off. Some may or some may not. A more experienced mechanic will teach you that and how to use their equipment. And then you got to worry about cables and so forth and internal routing, which this does not. It's all one length piece. So you're going to be doing a lot of learning. A lot of the tune-ups that I was introduced to back in the day from transitioning from bike builds to to tune-ups was basically the free tune-ups that are included, because you had a good base tune-up initially usually, and then it was a little bit just more of adjustments, and that's kind of a good way of cutting your teeth. But some shops may not have that, and you just dive into whatever random brand that is. This one's a Breezer, pretty cool. Joe Breezer, one of the godfathers of the mountain bike scene back in the California days. Look it up. He was still a part of the Breezer brand till about 2 years ago, and I forget the name of the corporate company, but they also own Fuji and a BMX line. Anyway, my buddy has one for his son. I can't remember now. Anyway, but they've kept the same flavors of Breezer, but the newer ones have a little more upper tech, because apparently Joe is a stick in the mud about certain things, and now they don't. He's not a part of it. Anyway, or Jim Breezer. Is it Joe or Jim? No, this is big. It has some scribbling on the back here. I'll be featuring this particular bike in a video separate, but in any case, a standard tune is basically you're making sure the wheels are true, hubs are adjusted, bottom bracket is nice and tight, headset as well, and it shifts and lubed, and all the parts are clean and everything. Take your time in cleaning on the first few of them. Have a senior mechanic double check it thoroughly, and make sure they communicate to you what you may have missed or may have not picked up on, because experience is one of those things where you just don't know until you actually experience it yourself. There's only so much that we can teach you in either a classroom setting or just explaining it to you. Like here, once you actually put the spoke wrench to spoke nipple, that's a whole different story. So you definitely want to check all the accessories too. Some people skip that part. Air pressure is good. Hopefully they've asked the customer if they have a preference of air pressure, or stick within the range it is on that. And double checking the tires and so forth. At the end of the day, you're just looking for safety. And then the second is comfort and performance. And the performance is it shifts smooth. It's the adjustments are supposed to help the lengthen the life, and also the lubing of the drivetrain, the life of the componentry and so forth, and the cleaning of the pads give you better braking and all that kind of stuff. So sometimes they'll have a laundry list of problems, and then you'll have to address each one of those individually. And when you do that, you're doing through that learning process of how to address those. And one break fix is not going to be like the other, especially when it comes to disc. So it's going to be even today, I still have the joy of going, oh crap, why is this not working? And then, you try some different things and, start replacing parts and what have you. With that experience, and usually after years of that experience, then you become the service writer, because you're the one that's going to get that bike in, and they're going to at least take care of 90% of the scaries and the conversation with the customer. But there are always going to be usually something that everybody's going to miss, which is, you can't catch everything. Maybe the lock ring is not tight, or maybe the free hub body is loose or binding, or maybe one side of the bottom bracket bearing, the bearing is crunchy and you just can't really feel it without taking that crankset off, that kind of thing. In case in point. So this is going to more, it's fairly a newer bike. It's going to be more in light polite, fairly, in my experience level, fairly easy, but famous freaking last words, because all of a sudden I'll come across something really weird. Even on the easiest things, sometimes you can. So, but that's it on your general tune. So when you're transitioning from that bike build, and again, the individual that I was talking about. Oh, SE Bikes. Thank you, Randy. Yes, man. Yeah, right there. But it's again the new bike builder of last week was really so focused on time. The time equation. Yes, I mean, you can't be just neglecting time, just like milking the time on a bike. I mean, no, you don't do that, but you want to take your time in a professional perspective of making sure you catch everything. and making sure it's done right the first time, and double checked once the first time, and not have to go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth until it's completed. But the thing is, at the end of the day, is like you want that experience for the customers, get on that bike and go for a ride. Also, a big note, and the first one you should really pay attention to when you get a bike is most likely it is fitted to them in some fashion or another, saddle height and so forth. So you want to make sure you tape off any markers if you need to adjust the seat post to clamp onto it or any of that. Don't be muddling with seat angles and all that, because they may need that specific. If you need to do some changes with the bars and so forth, or take the brake levers off to clean them, mark them, make sure they go on to exactly where they were before, this fit. And you don't know, sometimes they may have paid a whole bunch of money for that fit, and if you get just a little bit of adjustment off, they're going to not have a great experience when they go for the ride. Everything could be right with the bike, right? It shifts great, it brakes, the technical portion of it is like spot on, but if you messed with their seat, that's a bad experience, and boom, they're never going to come to your shop again. Oh, I've heard it. My neighbor is always like pissed at the shop that she took hers at. Not at me, because I know better. But yeah, those things you want to be very mindful. And for sure, on every bike that comes in for service work is fitting. It may have had nothing done to it at all, and they may not ever notice, but it'd be that one time, and sure enough, you will hear it. Your owner will hear it, your manager will hear it, you'll hear it. I mean, it'll be woof. So fit is a huge thing. So be mindful of that. Granted, this is a recreational bike. Most likely it's not a fit, but I did tape the bar, seat post, make sure. And with my services, I do provide a static fit at the end, even if they've never been fitted before. Then we can adjust those adjustments and so forth when they do the pickup of the bike, which also gives them a little bit more hug, understanding of their bike, teach them how to use the gears. A lot of people still don't have a hard time getting their head around how they should shift gears, and that just gives them the best experience possible. That extra 20 minutes with the customer will give you that customer for life. Guarantee it, hands down. So yeah, you may say it's at a cost, but it's well worth it, I'm telling you right now, for a static fit. And one of the shops that you watch me says we do static fits on every bike that we sell, and maybe even some service. Kudos to you. That's something that the industry's dropped off and made it just only a paid service. I'm not talking about the expensive fit and all that, just the simple adjustment of height, saddle position, and bars, that kind of thing. And at least that gives them the understanding that you're an expert at this, and then they'll go to you to need if they have any more additional issues, they have somebody to go to. They have that warm hug. So in any case, so that's the light and polite tune-up. I have something over here I wanted to talk about today. They'll be working on that's not so light and polite. It's polite. Well, it will. I don't know. It will be. We'll do a camera angle change here. And it's starting to get warm in the garage, people. We have to close that door and pump some AC. This one's going to be a little bit of a mobile mix here. All right. I'll check on some you guys' chitter chatter too. This is the Q&A portion of this. Get the angle right so you can see what I'm talking about. Get my little trainer tray here so I don't dump my computer. All right. Let's see here. Shop live needs work there, live depending on it. Yeah. David, thank you for chiming in. David has a great question. How many years of shop work before a new teen employee becomes a reliable technician? That all dependent on the person themselves. I've had some people that pick up on it like that. I've had some people that had a hard time getting there, but they eventually did. So it's really, that is really based on the individual, and also really based on the training you can provide and the positive reinforcement you can provide with that training. Coming with the years of experience of training people doing weird things. In any case, not within, well, maybe some in industry. I don't know. All right. Keep turning. Oh, yeah, Randy has good. Yeah, Randy has a good reply on that. Just keep turning wrenches and work every day. You get it right. Hands. Uh, hands on the Walmart to high-end bikes. Yeah, the range of bikes, and the bike industry has not helped us out in the last 20 years because they keep on adding bizarre tech, specialty tools, special know-how. Since I've been doing it for so long, it's still a challenge for me. Word of warning, and always will be. But the thing is I know the basics well, like the basics to intermediate stuff well, and the stuff the really precise technical individual pieces of it, you can learn on the way, and we'll always constantly be learning. You never know everything to the end. I mean, it's until they stop making bikes altogether. Hopefully not, because then that's totally another world of hurt. But in this scenario, we're in a position where, yeah, we're looking at, experience over time, and then you'll eventually get to it. That's the case. Another timestamp here. I'm going to do for more challenging repairs. So we're going to go into one of the more challenging repairs that most bike shops will come across. And the challenge is safety. Basically what it comes down to is safety. Safety, safety, safety. Let's see here. Mark, thank you for chiming in. Appreciate it. Your methods are simply better than the local shops here in Las Vegas. Oh, am I very thorough? Try to be. But I have the luxury of slowing down, and besides being older and slowing down, I'm using that to my advantage, taking my time, because I'm trying to put myself in the best win scenario with my customers, with my community, is slow the F down, do it right, take your time, and be detailed about it. Learn why things are the way they are, breaking, or to me it's kind of like a detective work, like how did it get here this way? It's kind of fun, like, oh, I know what happened here. Once you have a few of those aha moments, things click, and it's great for sure. All right, it looks like in the chat, David and Randy are having questions here. That is a good question though. Randy's been in the industry for 20, I've been in it 35. Just curious on how long new hires throughout over other shops can take, or you are talking to get to the point to where your working doesn't need to be double checked around. Double checking is one of the most important things. And if I had a coworker working with me, all my stuff would be double checked, guaranteed. Unfortunately, I am a one-man band on that front, but then again, I double check myself. It's kind of like I have to put myself out of myself to do that, but you can, and sometimes that relates to, how you doing? Yeah, just go ahead and put it down there. Thank you. Yeah, you too. Take care. UPS just showed up with my missing package. It's awesome. It's awesome. Yeah, QBP ships for 365 cycles, and they missed a piece. We'll open up here in a second, and it's basically a box of cables. In case, email them back and the picker at QBP and blaming them, knowing them that they shipped them, like, you picked one instead of two. Easy fix. Any case. Double checking work. If you can, always have somebody double checking. Even if somebody has less experience than you, have them double check your stuff. Take it for a test ride. Go through the shifts, the gears, and so forth. Especially if you're doing volume work. Volume work is like a scenario where everything desperately needs to be double checked, from the most experienced mechanic to the least experienced mechanic. Biggest headline. Just to have a double check for safety, for sure. Bolts, torques, pedals, shifting, stopping, all the things. You should have a laundry list of things in your shop that you double check, and when you check off when you're doing work, which I think that new program has a template you can custom build to do checkoff lists and so forth and that kind of thing. In any case, you should have one anyway. Most of your shops should have a checklist. It shouldn't be just all fly by the seat of your pants, because you'll miss things or forget things and that kind of thing. You double check, and then somebody who's double checking that list as well as what they're doing to the bike, will keep you not become lazy or tired or oversee things. There's a lot of excuses, and we're beings of imperfection. So to try to produce perfection, double checking is the best thing you can do. So don't ever. I'd be more than happy to have somebody double check my work. Customers. That's where part of that. To be honest, the double checking I kind of rolled onto the customer in a sense, because when I take that bike and put it in the feedback trainer that I have for fitting, it's really them going through the gears and so forth. And I get on it too before they show up and double check the shifting and so forth and all that. And then that, it's kind of like using the customer as the checking process before putting them at any risk. They're on the trainer in a fixed environment. And then, if something does arise as they're on there, then you can, fix it, that kind of thing. So that's one of the many things I try to do to make sure that what goes out the door is safe. And I test ride everything. Everything needs to be test ridden and test roden. And since again, I have luxury of time, I take a little bit longer. Back and forth, I can hit the gears. If there's a little adjustment, I do a little adjustment, and I test ride it again. I just don't assume that adjustment sticks in the stand, because the seasoned mechanic knows what happens here may not really translate to out there. So that's one of those things you got to always double check. Maybe Joshua positioning up e-bike can tell me. He's a one individual most of the time working on bikes. He probably does the same thing for double checking and stuff. But great question, David. Thank you, and Randy. Thank you for responding as well. Yeah, we always take them out for a test ride. 2 miles. That's about right. I know it's good. Yeah, if you can, if you have time, get a little longer on it. I'm lucky I have a bike path, so I kind of do a couple of loops and a little bit of hill, not hills, but you get enough torque on that and burn those brake pads in and all that good stuff and so forth. Yeah, so great question, great conversation on that. Great gold nuggets. Double check your work, triple check your work, triple check. Any case, so the last bit here, 15 minutes or so, I have the challenging repair. Why is this challenging? Well, it's a bike I sold years back. Customer loves it. Loves the bike. Here's the challenging thing. You'll hear every story under the sun of things happening to bikes. And sometimes it's not related to riding at all. Case in point. This one's on the back of a bike rack. And that bike rack on the back of a car, bloop, did one of these. And it got itself some road rash. To the point, I'll show you, the bar is ground down to a flat surface here. Seat is missing a very precise ground down chunk. The pedal, I think somewhere here got hit too. So the leading questions to the customer was, yeah, it fell off the bike rack, got dragged. Okay, what side of the bike? How much do you think contacted? What did you see at the scene? It's kind of like investigation work of being like a cop seeing a murder scene. Like, what happened to this poor damn bike? Oh my God, it's a nice carbon Trek Madone 3.1, and he has a stable of bikes, so he's not hurried about time. He's actually going out of town to do an event, I think in Pennsylvania or something like that. But this is his trusty steed. This is the one he loves. And then when he bought it from me, I had it so refurbished and on point. He's like, he never really needed to bring it back. But when it got, he had it done locally. It was fine. I mean, he lives 2 hours away. But he was like, with this particular scenario, he wanted me to work on it. So there's an emphasis on, he felt more comfortable me taking a look at this. Well, there's a couple reasons. One, I refurbish bikes. I like going through used parts and put things together and not always replace with new. A lot of shops are preconditioned. All they have is a catalog book from QBP or BTI or J&B, which is new wholesale parts, and that's all they can think of when they're buying parts to replenish, not necessarily the used market. I do both. When it comes to new, if it needs to be new, it goes to new. If it's something I can find refurbished that works just as well, but it's vintage to the actual shifters or the derailleurs or whatever it may be, I can vet those out and find those too. eBay is wonderful for that. And if you find the right sellers that basically clean up stuff and double check it, they're actually mechanics too. It's just byproduct of some shops. That's a way of finding some of those vintage parts to match up, so you're not throwing on microshift on an old 6500 derailleur system Ultegra. It's just case in point. Okay, so what am I going to have to do? Well, he needs new bars, that's for sure. The hoods are a little scuffed up. That could have been from something else, or this too. Bar tape, of course. Essentially, when it comes to something like this and this kind of aggressive damage, it's basically a strip down to the bare bones. In other words, you take everything off like you would do in an overhaul. That's basically what I'm going to do. While I'm doing the overhaul, I'm going to be detailing and cleaning this frame with a fine-tooth comb. I'll probably will do that first. I'll get the parts off, maybe cleaning while they're cleaning the ultrasonic cleaner. I'm going to be really focused on this frame. Reason being is the frame is third of the bike, but also it is the most important part of the bike because it equates to the fit portion of the bike and how it rides. So if there's anything compromised on this, I would hate to do all the parts and go, oh, there's a cracked frame. So I just wasted all my time, which I don't feel comfortable charging the customer for, although he may use those parts on another bike, which would be great, but you never know. So you want to just, scenario, double check the frame, make sure that is rock solid. So by doing that, I clean it, inspect it, detail it, polish it, ceramic coat it. I'm going through that frame, all the different angles and all different lights over a course of 2 days of doing that process. The detail in that frame, I mean, not the straight 2 days, but you start some of it and you go do something else, and while that's drying, you do it again, that kind of thing, come back to it. And that ceramic coating has to cure overnight anyway. So that gives me a chance to go through the bike in thorough detail, making sure it's not compromised. Once that is identified, which the derailleur hanger is bent, so that's going to have to be addressed. As part of the derailleur hanger that is mounted to for the frame, bent too. That's the other question. Is it cracked in that area where the frame is? Because we're talking about on pavement impact with a car and speed. So this has nothing to relate to a bike flying over the handlebars, or and then it's up there with the category being hit by a car, but that kind of thing. Same kind of scenario when you're not. Do not just do like, oh, we'll just do a little safety check in the shirt. Because you can't really see underneath the little parts there under the dirt. It may shift okay, it might be all right, a couple adjustments. When it comes to the impact of this nature, you will be needing to do a full overhaul to be safe, to be sure. That is, there are no questions, no workarounds that at all. Okay, so once I get the frame, it gives the green light. I'll double check that hanger. May need to get a new hanger because it's been bent pretty far. Maybe I can straighten it out. Then maybe I just feel comfortable spending it, having the customer spend an extra $20 for a replacement derailleur hanger, which is already aligned. You're not supposed to cold bend aluminum that much anyway, so that's usually hangers are all aluminum, except for the Silca titanium ones, which, whatever. Take it there, Silca. Take it too far. In any case, so if the frame and fork is good, then it's onto the wheels, which is the next big heavy lift expense. If the wheels are compromised, then I'll go to bicycle. I'll probably check with bicycle wheel warehouse in California and see if I can get either a custom built setup that's good for this bike or something they may have in stock. They're really known for good rim brake bikes, wheels. And they do a really good job. I had a set of those, a review also in my catalog of videos, so check that out. But in any case, the wheels are good. They come out true. They didn't get damaged. It doesn't look like it. I've had some where the tires have been ripped right off and the rim is grounded down at an angle, just like the saddle. And I'm just see if I can vet a saddle that's similar. So the bars I know are going to replace. The saddle too. The derailleur maybe. I also have this ground down here. The crank here may be bent. I may not even know it until I test ride it because that pedal will feel like a little wheel will wobble as I'm pedaling around. So that might be something I'll check into too. So there's going to be some high-level detailing work that's going to have to be applied to this bike, also to make sure that it's safe, because I would not ever want to have, something I worked on have anybody get hurt on, number one, but double check to make sure this is safe to ride, especially as this person's steady steed. He wants this to be dialed like back to where it was originally. Also, it looked like he had a adjuster. I don't believe I put this on there. The adjustment stem cable's a little bit short, housing a little bit short on this anyway. So we're going to do the whole, you got to take it apart. So new cables and housing, a complete overhaul, double check all the parts, that, pedals are going to be new, replace some ones, see if I can vet some bars that are, I may have a set of bars too that might be the same match and size. And then I'm going to double check. I'm also going to measure things out, as in where the bars position is and the shifters and the seat before I do anything in disassembling. Back to that fit thing, fit is first. So you want to make sure, once I get this all back together, and if everything works out great with new parts and all that, I'll put them on the trainer to make sure I got it back to where it was, but to double check. And maybe it needs to be adjusted anyway, because maybe it wasn't just right to begin with. But any case, therefore, that's a lot of other things you got to work on that checklist to work through to understand all those things. Yeah, but I say, well, you want these bars, or you were looking to get a carbon bar, or you just want something to match? He mentioned more matchy-matchy. He said it was perfect how he had it. So we're going to try to stick with that. If it comes to the cranks, these are the SRAM Apex cranks. I think that was OEM matched, but it is a press fit bottom bracket. So hopefully we don't have any crank issues. But in any case, if we need to do that, maybe we'll look for a 105 10-speed crank set if it comes to that. It's more of a compact size on that too. So anyway, those are kinds of things. In my little world, since I don't leverage QBP on a weekly basis, or BTI or JMBI as in parts, I really vet eBay parts and so forth. From shifters and so, because I'm providing those parts too as a vendor and a sorts of used parts. And I clean them up, refurbish, test it, all that kind of stuff. I don't try to put out anything that's just junk. If it's something that's doomed in the sense that, for parting out only for a frame set, then I'll mark it as that. But anyway, other than that, for regular parts, if there's something really weird with the derailleur, it's either pitched or gets parted out for other, my little parts bins that are underneath me, for fixing, bolts and nuts and stuff like that. But in any case, so those are the big ticket, no, not big ticket, the big projects that I have going on. This is bigger than the other, but those are the two for a short week for 4th of July. Here in the States, the 4th of July is our Independence Day. So Friday, a lot of people shut down. I'll probably do yard work because I haven't got a chance to do much of that, and go out with some friends, family friends, and we'll have the kids play and watch fireworks and watch our friend Tim blow things up. And then the weekend, we'll just have a nice and polite weekend and take care of a few people that are riding out there. So yeah, that's me in this week in a nutshell. But I want to kind of loop back to what we did last weekend, which is that Bike MS, and I'm sure you have probably charity rides or event rides in your neck of the woods. And recapping off of that, it was very, for me personally, very uplifting, because this has been a growing, evolving thing for me. Reason being is my parents started doing it back in '88, and we were part of it, but my parents would always do the actual ride portion. We would stay back and take care of the shop. But we were involved with the training rides and all that circumferenced the Bike MS, and back then it was MS 150, because it was 150 miles in 2 days. But they changed it to the Bike MS, and I always verbally mix those up, not even thinking about it. But in any case, so we had a family connection through that. When my dad passed away, then I started doing just the events myself, and then I started doing it for Lee Cyclery. And then when Lee Cyclery was sold to Trek was not going to do it, so I did it in placement. So if you see my old pictures and see old Parker Bikes banner out there, that was the year that I just did it. I bought some parts, I got tools, I just did it solo. Well, independently. I did have friends. I still have friends. And it started off with my old mechanic buddies back in the day doing the event. And then now my son's involved. And then now my daughter's involved. And then, my buddy Jack's son is involved. And I think, they really had a good time. And it's like a family get together. We're doing this thing where, it really shows not those who just are in the bikes and all that. It just shows people like to be human. Like you're out here doing something, and it was really fun. I haven't really explained it to anybody in a long time, but when I was at the first of that video, I was like, made a point, I want to explain it to our two younger kids. They're just starting to do it. Like, why are we here? Why are we doing this? Why are they here? What does it come from this? And who is it helping for? And why is it helping for them? There's a lot of those things you just kind of skip over in your head about an event like that. And it really kind of resonated and reset me in a sense. And this event always resets me because, I have personal ties to it. But it actually has been evolving to be more and more, not just something I'm doing to try to promote my business. That kind of stopped, that kind of initial, it does, don't get me wrong, but that's not the forefront purpose of doing it at all. Even if I didn't have a shop, I'd still be doing it. And case in point, I did for a while. I wasn't representing anybody, just going out there and taking care of people. And that's where, to me, it resonates and hits home. And, to a simple adjustment to more complicated broken shifter cable inside of a 10-speed shifter, that got me for a little while. But we got it fixed. And then we got like spokes with internal spoke nipples, which is another troublesome, but we got it fixed. We got those people out riding, and they're riding for somebody, they're riding for something, and they, we were there to help them, to keep them on their journey. That was the thing. It's like, we were there to help them, and we helped them, in glorious fashion, and it continues. It's like, we're doing it next year. I can tell you 2 days afterwards, we're doing it next year, committed, give me a contract, I'm signing. That's it, like done, ready to go. Lindsay, let me know. And then I'm doing other events for the same organization. They're like looping me in to do other things, and like, sure, let's do this. Let's try some other stuff out, because it's not just raising money for an event, for some event to squander that money to whatever it goes, to either research or staffing or whatever. Because you've heard the percentages, right? Like so much gets just kind of into the organization. But the case in point, some of it does get to people. Some of it does get to research. Some of it does get to help move it forward, move the needle just a little bit. Every year, a little bit more gets pushed. So some point, someday, like it won't be a disease anymore. That's great. And they'll change it to some other charity for something else. I think polio is one of those. It got switched over to a different one. But in any case, it's one of those things. That'd be the win end game. Would I stop there? No. There's always something else to do. It's about the community portion of helping out your community, helping out, and then seeing your family being a part of that is priceless, right? And hopefully my kids can. It doesn't have to be this is like technical, but if they're doing other charity or just helping out, handing out bananas or whatever, cheering people on, helping with setup for, rest stations and stuff like that. There's so many different components to it that they can help out. They don't have to be a bike tech to do this. You don't have to be a bike tech to do this. If you're just an avid cyclist and you want to join out and help out, my neighbor, prime example, she used to race. She just does novice riding now, but she's out there doing a lot of these other events. Even though she's not riding them, she's out there supporting them. That's part of that community. She's doing it because she wants to do it, and she crosses over to other 5K runs and stuff. I've seen her out there doing all the other things. So, that's part of that. It's just it's doing the right thing, and coming off the high of that, it's great, and that helps me mid-season, hair pulling out mid-season, going to reality check, even though I busted my butt all weekend to do that, setting up, taking all the care of all those bikes, getting cooked in the sun in a 90-degree heat for 2 days, and come back and try to deal with the sweating out all the grease and having too many beverages with the friends the night before. Like I said, it's a family event, just like your family would be. We did it, and without all that, it's like a great reset. And for myself, a gold nugget to keep me going through the rest of the season, like taking care of these individuals to the best of my ability. I'm taking my time to do it. There is no reason to rush it. Obviously, you want to be effective with your time. I have to be too. I do every little thing in the shop, so every day everything gets done. But when it comes to the most important pieces, the bikes get the most attention. Cleaning my bench, yeah, you can see that always gets kind of put aside. Sweeping the floors, it doesn't happen. But getting all the promotions out that I probably need to do, and all the little tricks of YouTube and putting all the keywords and everything in it. Sometimes that always gets done. But at the end of the day, though, the focus is the bike. The bike gets tuned up to the best ability that it can. It gets all the attention to detail. All the other little shop stuff, like cleaning and organizing all that, that stuff could be set aside as long as it's not not encroaching on your efficiency. But I'll get to that later when it gets a little bit slower, but this is going to get all the attention it needs to get to detail. It needs to be. Bleh. Okay, I'm done. All right, we talked for 2 hours straight. I don't know how I do this, but here I am. Oh, thank you, Steve, for chiming in. Hope you're enjoying your nice summer there in the UK. Awesome. Yeah, I hope it to keep to a more relaxing tone, not like Chicken Little like some other, we've been around the block a few times, right? We've done some of our rides. We've seen a lot of the stuff. We haven't seen anything all at the same time or weirdly as this, but hey, when it comes to the end of the day, nobody's going to get us down, right? We're bike shop people. We work on bikes. We love our community. We are here because we love doing this. That's what it comes down to. If you have any takeaway of this, if you're working in a shop or you're just an avid cyclist, know for a fact that a lot of us are here because we enjoy doing it. And somehow we figured it into our finances to keep us doing it. And it doesn't pay a lot. We're not here, so don't think we're just making highway robbery. It's not, never. Oh, yeah, never will be. And we know that. We're gluttonous for punishment when it comes to that portion of it. But when it comes down to bottom line, making people have the best experience, getting kids out there riding bikes with big smiles on their faces like my daughter, I mean, it's just priceless. Priceless. Do it all day long. Love doing it. Getting choked up. Any case, what's in that box? I'll leave you guys as I'm revealing the 365 missing order box from QBP, Quality Bike Supply, where their Aurora warehouse employee in the hot Thursday was having a hard time counting, because it did say 2 on the package slip. So, and 365 Cycles, I think the main company, if you're a bike shop, the QBB account, you know that you can basically leverage their direct-to-consumer, I'm saying it, direct-to-consumer platform. Oh yeah, there it is. So I ponied up, I bought, there's a lot of different choices of brake cables out there. And this is no plug whatsoever, but I found that, for my sanity of working on things, you don't have to have the top of the line, but you want to have good replacement parts on hand. And if you have good replacement parts, this is stainless steel 1.1, I think they're rolled cables. They're more expensive, but they're not the coated or the high-end stuff. These are not sold in kits, but you can buy this in a bulk of 100. 365 cables had a two box sale, and they would still came to like a little under a little less than $2 a cable ish, so for me in retail, flipping like a cable's $4, sell for cost is $2, sell for $4. But you got the nicer, not galvanized steel, which eventually will. The galvanizing will come off and rust. The stainless steel won't. Also, since there's a 1.1 and it's rolled, it's going to be a little bit smoother. So when it goes inside that housing and so forth, it's going to slide and help those stubborn freaking derailleurs sometimes or shifters to shift a little smoother and be a little more dead on, because that can be the make or break point of your sanity when you can't get that damn thing to shift. Oh, sorry. My daughter's been watching. I got to roll back my profanity. Sorry about that. I put some in the tip jar, swear jar. But yeah, you have, I mean, I've had one last week, which was like baffling. It's the derailleur design of it is junk, but what got it to actually still work was having the better quality cable. And I get these from Jaguar, or not directly from Jaguar, but 365 Cycles had them on sale. You can buy the individual ones if you need them. I think they're like $4.99 or something like that. But yeah, that's something, technical tidbit. You can buy, I mean, as a service manager, I've been there, a shop, buy less expensive cables and so forth, have a higher profit yield. But since I'm doing it myself, I'm torturing myself if I get cheaper replacement parts. So I find myself buying a little bit nicer. I do roll that to the customer a little bit, but it's better to have a little bit nicer, replacement parts. Bearings, grease, cables in the housing, and that kind of thing, because that makes the end result much better, even though the customer may not even notice. But it'll notice when it counts, right? When you really need to get that rear derailleur, front derailleur to work properly, and any little bit of binding of a housing or cable or any kind of technical aspect of it is going to make that be a win or a loss. So in any case, there we go. Thanks for hanging out with me on Shop Talk Tuesday. I do have affiliate links below. If you're watching this on the replay, please put some comments below of your experiences, or you have any insights that you want to join this community, please subscribe. Hey, thanks for hanging out with me. And again, if it's Tuesday, it's Shop Talk Tuesday. See you next Tuesday. And thanks for chiming in. I'll do a couple shout outs to those who did chime in. And by chiming in, by doing the chat, you are supporting my channel. Lucky if you're willing or not, you are. Easy answer. Who wants to blow 12,000 on a bike when your bike only can just as good as you think? I just want to get service done, etc., and save money. Yeah, good point. Thanks, Peter, for chiming in. Appreciate it. Randy, of course, always. Brother from another mother in a different state, working on bikes, cranking out. He does service, has a service business himself. Steve, thank you for chiming in from the UK, as across the pond, as I would say it. But yeah, Steve, in your neck of the woods, I have a couple, Reynolds frame. I'm very envious of the Fairlight company you have out there. So it's one of those things that I had one in my hands that worked on it. It was nice. I have a video of it. It's beautiful. And also John Bradley talk about it too. Precision e-bike, Josh, always thank you. I know you're just busier and anything could all be, and thanks for chiming in and listening. Always a pleasure. David, thank you for your great questions. Mark as well. Oh yeah, Mark, you're the Vegas cat. One of those days we may hook up and go for a ride. Yeah, I did the Swanee bike interview. They were really cool cats to let me host my Shop Talk Tuesday a couple weeks ago there. Great shop, if you need service. They are service oriented and they really know their shit. Oh, good. Yeah, swear jar again. Sorry. Thanks, Randy, for reminding me of SC Bikes. I totally lost thought on that. I mean, they were there at the CABDA show in Las Vegas. It was great. Robert, thank you for chiming in, as well as Frank. Mike, yeah, thank you for the Schwinn reminder. And that's what we have in today. All right, it's time to go have lunch and take a nap. No, just kind of kidding. Any case, yeah, going to be diving into these buttes and shooting some video and doing, if you're in the States and you're doing your 4th of July, have a wonderful 4th of July weekend. We'll just we're not alone. You're not alone. We're all here. We're all trying to navigate this total crap sandwich that they're, whatever they're doing. However you feel about it, either side. We just need to get through this and let's get life back to being freaking normal again. Something that with some consistency, and get out there and ride some bikes. Enjoy. Go out there and fix some bikes. Get, put some smiles on some faces. Man, got some smiles this weekend. Awesome. It was great. Really great. Be a winner. Be a hero, not a winner. Be a hero. Be the hero. Be the hero of your own story, right? Any case, thanks for chiming in, folks. Appreciate you. And let's see. Yeah, David. Oh, great job, David. Your sales are still up for the last 2 years. That's great. Those small guys, I think we have an opportunity here to kick it out of the park and really kick it into the nuts of those big corporations and say, hey, wake up, do the right thing, because you haven't been doing the right thing in the last couple decades. So let's get them going. Right on. I got things to do. You too. You got things to do. Either ride your bike or work on a few. And after that, have a cold beverage on me. Well, later. Thanks again, guys. Have a wonderful day. And until next time, again, if it's Shop Talk Tuesday, it's Talking Tuesday. Oh, yeah, tacos. That's what I'm going to go get. Tacos.